Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. I'm Nika and I make book related videos, and if you are here for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoyed this. So today I'm going to be sharing with you all the books that I read in the month of March. I have all my details right here, my reading journal. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started. But first, let me give you some statistics. So I ended up reading a total of 13 books in March, which I think was a pretty good number. Out of these 13 books, 10 were ebooks, Kindle Unlimited, all of that, and 3 were physical books. So it's a strange mix that I read this month in March, really, because generally I'm a person who reads more of physical books rather than ebooks or audiobooks. But we saw a change in that in March. Then when it comes to the genres that I read, out of all the 13, I read 3 literary fictions, 5 romances, 1 mystery, 1 dark academia, 2 short story collections, and 1 non-fiction. So those were the books I read, and I think it's going to be really interesting, this video, because I did read a diverse collection this month, more or less. So it was really fun, especially in terms of the genre as well. It was all over the place, but I had a lot of fun, and without further ado, let's dive right in. Alright guys, moving on, I have to share my thoughts on Babel. Now this is a dark academia, post-colonial, anti-colonial kind of novel, and I thought this might perhaps be my first 5-star read of the year. However, no. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. Let me tell you why. Firstly, I really enjoyed the setting. Basically, the story is about this guy called Robin Swift. He is from Canton, and because of a cholera epidemic in Canton, he is basically left orphan. And now this Professor Lovell, I think from the Oxford University, he comes to take the little boy with him to London. And in London, Robin Swift has to learn, and he's basically tutored by various tutors at Professor Lovell's house in the languages of I think Mandarin, Latin, and Greek. So he taught all of these languages rigorously for the year so that he is one day able to join Oxford University's the Institute of Translation, which is called Babel. And he is very grateful in the beginning. So that was one element that was shown. However, since this is an anti-colonial or post-colonial novel, we see Robin Swift's realization about how language is used to, eventually control all of the colonies that the British Empire has under her. So that I did enjoy the setting of it because it's dark academia, right? So it's set in Oxford, the years of studying, the years of going to classes, doing your homework assignments, sitting up with friends late and discussing and having intellectual discussions, and all of that. It was really interesting. However, this book felt very, very info dumpy at points, and I was having a discussion with my friend the other day, and she mentioned that she read a review somewhere in which it was stated that this book felt a lot like an essay at points, an academic essay, and I could not agree more. So that was something that really struck me as well, and kind of felt boring. I mean, in the beginning, it was interesting and very novel, but as the story moved on, it felt like it was a bit unnecessary at points, you know. And then the character of Robin also felt a bit flat to me. His experiences and the world he sees, it's all told, it's not shown. And if you have been a reader for a long time, you know the whole discussion, the argument between showing versus telling that an author does in her works. So that's that. Overall, it was an interesting book, but sadly, it fell flat of my expectations. I had a lot of hopes for it, but it did not live up to them. Enjoyed the hype and everything. There are also these other characters, Rami, I think, Ramirez. I have actually forgotten. It's been a month since I read this book, so I've forgotten. Rami hates this girl, Letty, in that cohort. So it's just 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. We've got Robin, we've got Rami, who's from India, Calcutta, I think. Then we've got Letty, who is British, from Britain, of course. She's a white girl. The only person of or the only white person in this cohort, and then we've got Victoire, who is a black French woman. So Rami is a guy who really, really hates Letty, and I mean that hate on the surface level is perhaps because of this, jealousy, or the understanding of the fact of the privilege that she has as a white woman, even though her position multiple jeopardy because of her place, or because of her person being a woman in Oxford University at that time. Both Victoria and she have to face a lot of discrimination because there are women in this educational space that is predominantly male and white, and the guys face this issue of being men of color in that environment. So all of that, and then there was this bit in the end where Victoria knows a lot of stuff. She gives a lot of info towards the end. I mean, how did she know, right? We have to get a bit of background, but we did not get that. So yeah, I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. Moving on, I also read Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jesse Sutanto. And basically, in this book, we follow a 60-something woman called Vera Wong who has a Chinese tea shop. And one day, she suddenly she comes out to find a body, a dead body in her shop. And from then on, the mystery unfolds. Who is this guy? Who killed him? Why? And all of that. She forms bonds with all of these people who all seem to have a motive to kill this guy, basically. And the story goes on from there as we discover how each person is related to this dead man and why each of them kind of more or less hates this man. So the story moves on from there. It was interesting, the mystery is interesting, the plot was good, and I guess the culprit about 70% in it. Not that early, but I don't read that many mystery novels yet, and so I'm not that great at catching the culprit very, very soon in the book. But anyway, it was really interesting. There were some amazing descriptions of food that Vera, creates, that she cooks, and she feeds all of these people. She's like a typical Asian mom. And then there were some beautiful slice of life moments as well between the different characters. How they all individually know this dead man, and how they now, after the death of this man, start to more or less form connections with each other. That was done really well. However, Vera Wong got on my nerves so many times. She is such an irritating woman. I don't care if she's a 60-year-old woman. If a woman in reality came up to me and just starts ordering me around, why would even pay attention to her? And all these characters are scared of her. I mean, come on, you're all individuals, you're all old enough. None of them are kids, by the way, for them to be scared of this old woman. They just are. It really plays on that, Asian woman, Asian mom trope, which maybe, again, since I don't know, which maybe in their culture is um, prevalent, but as an Indian Asian, it just felt so irritating to me. And a person who does not respect others' boundaries and personal space is a pet peeve of mine. So it really triggered me, that book. But overall, it was an interesting read. But because of this one character, I felt very, very disturbed throughout the book. But yeah, overall, I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. And then I also read 2 non-fiction books. I said one in the beginning of the video, but I was wrong. I read 2 non-fiction books. The first one is I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki by Dek Sehi and translated by Anton Hoare. I think there are 2 translations. This is the one by Anton Hoare. So firstly, this is like, it says here that this is part memoir, part self-help. This is a book to keep close and to reach for in times of darkness. So it's basically about the author mentioning the conversations that she has with her therapist regarding her own depression and everything. I have to say that despite it being so widely accepted and loved, this book was not for me. However, again, a disclaimer, guys. Keep an open mind while reading this book. This is not for me, but that does not reflect on the quality of this book, because it is about the discussions that the author had with their psychologist. So, psychiatrist. So, again, of course, not everybody is going to relate to the same issues. Again, this is a non-fiction, like I just mentioned, part memoir, part self-help, and I think you can definitely give it a try and see if this is for you. Sadly, it did not work out for me. I personally did not really like the translation. It kind of felt very confusing. I don't know why, because I generally think Anton Ho is a great translation writer. But yeah, it didn't work out for me. Some of the bits in the beginning I could find inspiration from about how to reform my own behavior in order to, ensure some things in my life and all of that. But overall, in towards the end, after the 25% mark, I just could not relate to this book anymore. So, yeah, take this with a grain of salt. I personally rated it. Let me see. I personally rated it 2 out of 5 stars, but it doesn't have to be the same for you. Check it out, see if it works for you. Maybe read a few more reviews, a few more video reviews of this book, and then figure out if you want to try this or not. But sadly, it wasn't for me. Better luck next time. And then I read I'm Afraid of Men by Vivek Shraya, which is a non-fiction book by Vivek Shraya, the author, and her experiences as a trans woman. Firstly, when she was a man and masculinity was imposed upon her, and then later as a trans woman artist. Now, this was surprisingly a very, very short read. I just read it in one day, and I think in just 2 sittings. This is a book that can be finished in one sitting, but I was busy and this that. So I ended up reading it in 2 sittings, but it was very, very good. And don't be misguided by the size because it sure packs a punch. It's very good. So in this book, Vivesha explores her identity firstly as a man and then as a and then as a trans woman. It was really beautiful the way it was written, and it did not focus on just the black and white dichotomies. When which is generally what happens when books are written on this aspect and identity, gender, class, all of that. But Vivek Shah also delves into the gray areas and discusses the what if situations that, if explored, might have changed her life or her position in life at this right very moment. So it's done very well. It's very lyrical also. The writing is very, very beautiful. This is my first Vivek work, and I'm definitely going to check out perhaps the poetry next because that is something I want to explore. But overall, it was a very beautiful book, and I made many, many highlights on my Kindle. That is where I read this book. I rated it a 4 out of 5 stars. So, as I mentioned, I read 5 romances this month, and unfortunately, none of them were physical books. All of them were books I got from Kindle Unlimited or books I bought on Kindle, on my Kindle. So, yeah, let me share them with you all. The first book that I'm going to talk about is Bright by Ali Hazelwood, and I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars. So, in this book, it's basically a vampire and werewolf romance. The girl is named Misery and the boy is called Flo. He's a super powerful alpha in his werewolf clan, and she is the daughter of a very powerful vampire from her section of the society. And it's a world wherein humans, werewolves, and vampires all coexist. Of course, there are different clashes among them and everything, but yeah, everybody knows about each other's existence more or less. So what happens is that to maintain some sort of peace or to maintain that no undue deaths occur on either side, that is vampire and werewolf, Misery is married off to Lo, who is a werewolf, and basically it's a story. It goes on from there. So I think it was really interesting because I've read a lot of vampire and werewolf romances back when I was a teenager on Wattpad. So I feel like from reading fan fiction and to reading a romance mainstream kind of book today, I feel I've come to a full circle. It was really interesting. I really like the characters, and I think the romance was also done quite well. There's also a child in here, so don't worry, it's not a crybaby kind of child. It's an old enough, more or less toddler, not even toddler, old enough kind of child. But it was really interesting. The world building is also, I mean, it's an urban fantasy kind of. You could say this is more or less this world. There are cars, phones, video calls, and everything. And the girl is actually a coder, while he does not know anything about computers. So it's really fun, and having that particular contemporary setting also helped a lot in making it kind of more realistic as a read. I mean, as much realistic as it can be, a vampire and werewolf romance. But Overall, I had a ton of fun reading this book because I feel like I haven't read a vampire or werewolf romance without it being cringy. I mean, there were cringy points here as well, but overall, you know what I mean. Generally, vampire and werewolf romances tend to become cringy, but this was done quite well. So yeah, really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. Then the next book I read was Sweet Temptation by Cora Riley, and this was actually a reread for me. So in this book, we have this guy called Cassio whose first wife dies, and now he's left with one child. He's a mafia boss kinda, and in their world, he needs somebody to take care of this child. In comes our heroine Julia. She's very young. I think she's just 18 or 19, and she's married off to this guy. In the beginning, he finds her attractive more or less, but he's not ready for any sort of emotional attachment or anything. But slowly he sees her bond with the kid, and the kid also bond with her, and then their relationship evolves from then on. There's also some dark elements in this book. I mean, it's mafia after all, come on, it's bound to be a bit of a dark romance. However, their romance, the found family aspect, it was quite sweet. So I think there was a good balance between dark and something light and fun. So it was again another interesting read, and I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. Then I also read Hands by S.J. Tilley. This is sort of a romance between neighbors. It's a neighbors romance. It's also a stalker romance. I never thought that a day would come when I would love stalker or a stalker romance, but this one was done quite well. We have two girls. I think the girl's name was Cassie. We've got two people, not two girls, two people. We've got a girl called Cassie and a guy called Hans, and she has had this huge crush on him from the very first day. So what she does is to get his attention, she makes all these bakes all these cookies and cakes and all of that. Very weird stuff. I mean, she makes like zucchini cookie or something like that. It's very weird. I wouldn't, no matter how big of a crush I have on my neighbor, I would never eat something like that. But anyway, this is a book willing suspension of disbelief. So she keeps on telling him all of these things, but she never sees him except that one particular day when she moved into the neighborhood and she saw him for the first and only time. But yeah, so that's the story. But we don't really, not we do. Cassie doesn't really know what Hans feels for her, so it's really interesting seeing her come to that realization that, oh, maybe he likes me too. And it's also interesting because there is a thriller element in this book because he's more or less a contractual killer, I think, or an assassin. He's not really in the mafia, but he does deal with some darker things like that. And he's also dealing with a lot of trauma from his past. He's got a lot of things, a lot of baggage and everything. So I think this was done quite well. Really interesting and fast, more or less, read. And apart from the romance, there was this side plot. So I think it was done really well. The balance, it really came out on top. So yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. Moving on, I also read 2 more romance books, but I did not like them at all. First is Tempted by the Devil by Michelle Hurd. I have read Michelle Hurd's The Sinner series, and I really enjoyed that series. However, I think Michelle Hurd was a beginner level writer when she wrote Tempted by the Devil, because I did not enjoy it at all. It was just so cringe, so badly written. I rated it 2 stars. And see, I'm not going to recommend this book to you, and that's why I'm not going to delve into this book either. Just know that I rated it 2 stars, wouldn't recommend it. Then I also read Smokey, and this is again another book I wouldn't recommend. I ended up rating it 2 stars. This was a motorcycle and a single mom kind of romance, and it was just a lot of cringe. I did not like the characters, especially the girl, the female main character. I did not like her at all. So yeah, I rated it 2 stars. So those were all the 5 romance books I read, and now let's move on to the next genre. Hi guys, so I actually found out while editing that I've lost some of the clip. I'm not really lost, but those clips didn't have audio somehow. I don't know how it happened, but anyway, that happened, and so I'm gonna have to refilm this. Please ignore my disheveled homeless look because this is a realistic look. Nobody puts on any makeup at home, and unfortunately this is the time it caught me. So anyway, I am yet to talk about 4 books with you all. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto. Now this is a beautiful collection of 2 short stories. The first is called Kitchen and the second is called Moonlight Shadow. When I first went in, I thought it is just kitchen, but no, it turns out that there are 2 short stories. I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars because I thought it was a beautiful book. It's about this girl called Mikagi, I think, who just lost her grandmother, and now she's basically an orphan in this world. So what happens is that her friend Yoichi, he tells her that now that you're alone, why don't you come and live with me and my mother? And his mother is actually his father, who is a cross-dresser. So it's a beautiful story of these 2 individuals and how they slowly bond over time. But the romance is not the main thing. It's a lot more about Mikagi and how she copes with her loss, how she moves on in life and all that. The kitchen is also a big element in this story, and I personally love stories or essays that center around that space. So it's something that I really enjoyed. Again, like I mentioned, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely recommend it to you all. Next up, I also read Kim Ji-young, born 1982, by Cho Nam-joo. Now this is a beautiful short novel about this woman named Kim Ji-young, and it is firstly narrated by her psychologist, a male psychologist, and he basically narrates her life in a chronological order, so from her childhood to her teenage, young, like early 20s and then 30s and so on. So we see a lot of the struggle that she goes through, her mother went through, and through them we see a general idea, a portrayal of the issues that women go through in the South Korean society, which is essentially very patriarchal and very misogynist as well. And overall, it was a beautiful book. I felt so angry on her behalf at some points, the things that she has to go through, always playing second fiddle to men, whether it's within the family, to a younger brother, in the classroom, to a male to a male student, or within the workforce as well, where her position is never really given much importance just because she's a woman, and people assume that she's gonna go off, lose the job because she is gonna get married, have kids and all of that. So it really reflected a harsh reality of not just Korean society but also in general human society at its worst, I think, in its portrayal of the rampant misogyny. So overall, it was a very beautiful book actually, and I felt so much for this heroine. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I also read What You Are Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Aoyama. Now in this book we follow 4 different stories, but they are all interconnected. So we follow 4 different individuals and how they are kind of at an impasse in life and they need some guidance going forward. They're facing a dilemma. They are kind of suspended in limbo basically, and they all eventually end up at this at a library in a community center in their neighborhood, and they meet this librarian called Sayuri, who helps them find the way in life by by suggesting to them books that they are looking for. Firstly, of course, there's this list, like you are looking for books on antiques, say. So she gives you a list of books on antiques, and then she always adds one more book that she thinks will help the people deal with the dilemma that they are facing in life. It's very beautiful. I think I had a great time reading it, and I think that you should all definitely check it out as well. This is another book that I rated 4 out of 5 stars. Then lastly, I also read Instruments of Torture by Aparna Sanyal. Now I have read Aparna Sanyal's works before when I read Circus Folk and Village Freaks. Let me show you this poetry collection, and I really love this collection. So when I found out that the poet is coming out with a short story collection this time, I definitely have to read it and figure out what I feel about it, because based on the emotions, the amazing feeling I had when I read these poems, I knew that she's gonna be a killer at writing fiction as well, and she was. It's very good. So this is a collection of 8 different stories, wherein each different story is based on one medieval torture instrument. We've got the chastity bell, we've got the pillory, the Philaris bull, the Judas cradle, all of that, and those were very interesting. The stories delve into issues such as love, loss, forbidden love, lust, then lust for power, sexual lust,
voyeurism, all of that. So it was very, very beautiful, and they really managed to convey the whole myriad of human emotions and feelings, and I think it was done really, really well. I ended up rating it 4 out of 5 stars as well, and I would definitely recommend you to check out this book. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm so sorry that this thing happened, this issue with the audio and everything, but thank you for sticking around, and I hope you took some recommendations from this video, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Until then, take care and bye.